head out west, West Coast, best coast. I say that because I'm a West Coaster out here to Santa Anita for the Santa Anita Derby preview. This is going to go as race number 10 on Saturday. And Alexa, there are only 5 horses in this field, and they created a new rule last year because they wanted to make sure that where all these horses are trying to qualify, that the playing field is as even as possible. So if there aren't a lot of horses in some of these fields, there are going to be less qualifying points offered. So in this particular race we're going to be talking about, since there are less than 6 starters, there's a 25% point reduction. So that means the winner gets 75 points, the runner-up gets 37.5, third place finisher gets 18.75, because they just want to make it even. If you're only facing small fields out on the West Coast, that's really not the same thing as having to beat 10 or 12 other horses on the East Coast or in the Midwest. So I think that's a very fair rule, even being someone out here on the West Coast who, it's going to maybe impact some of these horses negatively if they can't get enough points. But I think that's very fair.
It's very fair. And there's, I think, another tier as well. Like if it were less than 5, I think it cuts to half, right?
Yep.
So if one horse were to scratch out of this race, the points would reduce again. So I do think it's a fair rule. It makes a lot of sense. Obviously, a horse winning against 4 others is much different than beating 11 others. So.
And what's really interesting about this race, Alexa, is while it's not as big of a field as we talked about in the Bluegrass or in the Wood Memorial, there are 3 horses in this race where if they win, they're going to be one of the top betting choices in the field, because right now, David Aragona made Journalism the favorite. So if the race were run today, he thinks Journalism would be the horse with the shortest odds. Citizen Bull was your 2-year-old champion from last year, and Barnes has one of the highest speed figures and speed ratings that we've seen run this year. So while it's not the biggest field in the world, it's certainly a field with some quality and kind of an intriguing group to talk about.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, okay, 5-horse field, here we go, gonna roll right through it. And then I was like, this is tough.
Yeah, because
you tough picking a winner.
You can really make a case, I think, for 4 of these 5, honestly, as we go through the field. And we start with Journalism. His win in the San Felipe, most recently on March the 1st, that was the best race that any horse in this division has run. Any of the horses in Florida or in Kentucky or in California, nobody has run a faster, better race than Journalism has. So I'll give him a lot of credit for that. But when we're talking about Saturday, can he run as good of a race or faster, or does he probably regress a little bit because he ran such a big race last time?
I don't know. I mean, that race was simply dominant and
awesome,
and just didn't even need all of what Journalism had in the tank. So since then, trainer Michael McCarthy's put in 3 maintenance works, and there's 2 other speedy horses in here. So I think Journalism's going to get a perfect trip on paper where he can just sit off and close. So Journalism, I'm sure, will probably be the favorite. You think?
Yeah, he's the horse to beat. And what was so impressive about him is he won that race in the San Felipe, and it was his first start of the year. So he probably wasn't even at his best in that race.
Yeah.
Like, he can probably take a step forward off of that, have a little bit more fitness built into him after that race. And remember, they're probably trying to point to peak in the first Saturday in May. So it's kind of a fun little back and forth where your horse is going great. You want him to keep going well. You don't want to run your best race necessarily on Saturday. You want to still be able to run a little bit better than that. He's going to be really, really tough to hold off, though. He's a fun horse, and I can absolutely understand why anyone thinks of him as the horse to beat right now in the Santa Anita Derby and in the Kentucky Derby. But he's going to face some Bob Baffert runners right next door to him. He's got Citizen Bull, who was the 2-year-old champion. He won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and he most recently won the Bob Lewis. That was his first start of the year. So, Alexa, it's kind of tough to knock what he's done. He's 4 for 5, and he's won his last 3 races in a row.
Yeah, he's a champ as well. I mean, he's got enough points already for the Derby, and workouts have been really steady. He had a bullet workout Saturday morning, which shows Bob Baffert has him, cranked up and ready to go for this race. So he's going to be tough as well.
Yeah. I've never been quite as high on him as maybe some of the other Bob Baffert runners. And so I'm curious if he's as good as a horse like Journalism, who might be kind of improving. And Citizen Bull might be one of those horses who was really good and really precocious, kind of ahead of everybody last year. I'm curious if he can still improve. Westwood feels like a horse that trainer John Sheriff's put in this race just to make sure that this race filled with 5, because the trainer of the 3, this horse, Westwood, is also the trainer of the 5, Baeza, who I think is a horse who has a shot in this race. I don't really know if Westwood has much of a shot.
I don't think so. I mean, they spent $700,000 on him. He's not yet lived up to that price tag. So, I mean, likely a deep closer in the field, but I agree. The horse is not nominated to the Triple Crown races. It's probably a filler.
You almost wonder it's filler, and can the 3 be a horse that makes life difficult for Barnes?
Yeah.
Right? Because can the 3 be a nuisance to the other horses who have early speed? If he makes it tough for the other early speed horses, that helps Baeza. But what do we do with Barnes here, who's the second Bob Baffert trainee? Barnes was behind Journalism. Do you think he can turn the tables on Journalism?
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where they place him,
Yes.
He'll likely need a second place to get in the Derby, but one scratch, he need to win the thing. They did spend $3.2 million on this horse to be the sales topper, so they have really high expectations. But I don't think he's totally lived up to what they've hoped for so far this season.
What makes it tough in races like this, when you have the same trainer with multiple horses, you don't really know which one they're going to use to show speed. So if Bob Baffert wants Barnes to show speed, he probably can, and that will make things a little easier for him. I thought the wild card in this race, Alexa, was Baeza, kind of a fun up-and-coming horse who's shown improvement. And I think if they go fast early on, this is one that will come running late.
This horse has huge footsteps to follow and shoes to fill. So this horse they spent $1.2 million on, and it's because he's out of the mare Puka, which is the mare of the 2023 Kentucky Derby winner Mage, and the mare of Dornoch, who's owned by MLB star Jason Worth, ran in the Derby last year and won the Belmont. So interesting play.
We have the same runners, slightly different order in the Santa Anita Derby, one of the big preps this weekend. When we return, we'll talk about the Santa Anita Oaks.